What is going on, guys? It's CodedRed here. Welcome back to the Advanced Spigot Coding for 1.16 series. In today's episode, we're talking about custom persistent data types. Now, in the last episode, we talked about persistent data containers a little bit, and in that persistent data container, we saved a persistent data type of a string. There should be a little thing on the screen right now showing you what I mean by this. And there's a lot of different things that we can save in here, like a string, an int, a long, a double. However, what if we want to save our own object? What if we want to save our own class that we created that has all this stuff in there? So instead of saving multiple things in the container, we can go ahead and just save our class that has things saved in the class. Hope that makes sense to you. So in today's plugin, we're coding a simple license. As you can see in my inventory, I have a thing called CodedRed's ID here. And whenever we click on this ID, it gives us our name, our UUID, and our date the ID was issued. However, you're probably thinking to yourself, the ID is pretty simple. It is really simple. What if you can just go into the Anvil and change a paper to the name? Well, I have a check for that as well. A fake ID check. This is a fake ID and this one's a real one. Basically just checking if it has a persistent data container or not. Really simple stuff. It is a simple ID, but the main point of this tutorial is to teach you guys how to create custom persistent data types. So without further ado, let's get into the code. I went ahead and set up the class already. This class is called license. It has a main class of license. It also has three other packages: a commands package, a listeners package, and a models package. This command class right here, it will be in the description below. So go ahead and copy that code if you want to use it. It's really simple code. I will go over it later in the episode. Just basically typing /getID and it's giving us an item stack of a paper. Let's get into the actual code. So let's go into our models package and let's create a new class. This is going to be our information class. You can probably guess that this class is going to store our information, like our private UUID, make this all caps, as well as our private string name, and then our private date. Or we can call this the issued date actually. Go ahead and import that, and the date import will be the java.util one. So it's really simple plugin. Like I said, it's just gonna, our information class is just gonna store our UUID, our string, and our date. However, if you were to do this normally, whenever you create a persistent data container, we would have to save the UUID to it, the string to it, and then the date to it. This time around, we're just going to save this whole class to it, and the class will hold this information for us. First off, we need to have a constructor here. It's going to be our public information. We're going to pass in a player, just so I can do this.UUID equals player.getUUID. And then this.name equals player.getName. Next up, go ahead and hover over UUID, press create getter and setter here, press OK, and we're going to do this for the next two data types here. And then just like that, our class is done. So what I want to do is save this class to a persistent data container so that we can get this information later on. And to do this, we need to create another class, and this class is going to be called information data type. This class is going to implement a persistent data type, and we need to add in a type right here. So how persistent data containers work is that it converts everything to a byte array, and that's how it saves the information. It saves all the information in a byte array. So what we have to do is actually convert our information class to a byte array, and then take that byte array later on and reconvert it back into the class so that we can use the information. A little bit complicated. However, the way that I'm about to show you guys is very, very simple. So let's get into it. Like I said, we need to save everything to a byte array. So byte array right here. That's lowercase b, my bad. Byte array, and then comma, information. So we want to save our information to a byte array, and then once we have our information in the byte array, we want to convert it back into the information here. Go ahead and import everything, and you'll get this little red underline under your class. Just go ahead and add the implemented methods, and these are the 4 methods that we will be doing. Now 2 of them are very simple, the other 2 are kind of complex, so I'm going to copy this first one up here, copy it, I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to move it down to the bottom because it is the most complex one. And then this first one is super simple, get complex type. All we want to do is return the information.class. We're just getting the complex type. Complex is basically means our object class. Primitive data is just our bytes. So really simple here as well. We're going to say return bytes array.class. Super easy. Get complex type gets our class. Get primitive type gets our byte array. To primitive, like I said, this converts our information to the byte array. First off, I'm going to change this arg0 to complex. And in here is also very easy. We're going to say return. And what I'm going to be using here is the serialization. So serialization utils. I'm going to serialize the complex class. So we're using the serialized utils, and it's because it just makes it 100 times easier. I will have 2 different classes in the description below showing you how to use this for a UUID as well as a string array, and it actually goes in and converts everything using bytes and bits and whatever to serialize it to a byte array. However, this does it for us. It's so useful. But the only downside is that our class must implement serializable. So we have to go in to our class, our information class up here, and type in implement serialize. I think it's just serialize. Maybe visible. There we go. So we type in implement serializable here, and then we get this little yellow underline. You can just go ahead and add a default. Doesn't matter here too much. So we're adding in a default right there. And this makes it so our class can be serialized and can be turned into that byte array. Now, like I said, this is one downside because not everything can be serialized in Bucket. And I do have a little note and put here at the top. I'm gonna copy it real quick. Just giving y'all a warning, this is not a perfect system. Not all Bucket objects can be serialized. For example, our player object right here, I did not create a player up here because this class cannot be serialized. That's why I'm saving the UUID and the name. You guys will have to play around to see which ones can, which ones cannot. This system is obviously it's not perfect, but it is pretty good if you want to save a UUID, a string, and a bunch of different custom stuff. Say you want to save an int for the height or a string for eye color or whatever. If you want to save custom data, this is a great way of doing it because it makes it so much easier for us. So like I said, make sure you have the implements serializable are here for our information class so that in our data type, we're able to serialize it. Now on to the next step. If you are familiar with this util, you're probably thinking you can do this real quick. So do not type this. I'm just gonna give you guys a example real quick. So return serialization utils.deserialize our byte array. And then we also need to add the cast of our information. So you're probably thinking, if we can serialize our information class to a byte array, why can't we deserialize it to an information again? This will not work. There's so many instances where this will not work. I honestly have never found an instance where this does work. So we actually need to code our own deserialize, and it's super easy, so don't really worry about it. So we're instead of saying this, we're going to say try and catch an IO exception, as well as a class not found exception E. And inside the try, we're going to say input stream is equals a new byte array input stream, and whoops, private change. We're changing the arg0 to primitive. We're going to pass in primitive here. Go ahead and import all that. All right. So we passed in our byte array to this input stream. So our input stream now has this byte array in it. Next up, we're going to create an object input stream. We'll call it O, set equal to a new object input stream. And we're going to pass in IS here. So this is going to convert our byte array that's in our input stream to an object input stream. Super simple. Next up, we're just saying return, pass in a cast of our information to our o.read object. And that's going to return our information class. However, if there is an exception or the class is not found, let's go ahead and do e.printStackTrace. And if it is not found, we'll just do return null. But it should be found if you did code everything correctly. Just like that, our persistent data type is done. So this is, put a little note here, persistent data type. So this is our custom persistent data type. All right. And with our information done and our data type done, we can go into the command class real quick. Let's go over it. Go ahead in the description below and copy it if you would like. Just a very simple on command. Checks if the player is a player, checks if their inventory is full or not. If it is full, just returns. And if it is not full, it creates that information for them. And then, like I said, just passes in that player right here. So it creates the player and the UID. And then it also gets that set issue date. It just passes in the date that the current date that it is. And then adds the item, and the items right here. Super simple stuff. This is how you add a persistent data container to an item stack. All you have to do is go through the item meta. So we go through that item meta right here, and we set our namespace key to the new information data type, and we pass in information. So I'm gonna go over this one more time so you guys understand. When we're creating our persistent data container, like you saw in the last episode, you have to make sure we have our namespace key here. So that's our first argument. And the second argument is usually a persistent data type. So persistent data type. And it's usually one of these, and you pick it and you get to choose what you want to add in there. But instead we coded our own persistent data type. So we're saying new information data type, and we're passing in our class of information. I hope that all makes sense. If it doesn't, come join my Discord and I'll explain it even further. But super simple. On command just creates our item and gives it to the player. Once that is done, we can go ahead and create a new class in here. And this is our used license class. Implements listener. And you can kind of guess what this class does. Just sends the player the message of what is on the license. We're using the player interact event for this. And the first check I want to say is if the player does not have an item, let's return. So if the item type is not paper, let's return. We just want to whittle it down to where we get our item. So event.getItem. So if it doesn't have item meta, let's return. And then this last if statement is just so we can check for fake IDs. So if the item.getItem meta.getDisplayName.contains ID, let's return. And I'll add a little comment here. Allows fake ID check. Ooh, okay, finally. Once we have all those if statements done, we can go ahead and do what we did earlier. Player equals event.getPlayer, and our persistent data container equals event.getItem. get item meta get persistent data container. So this is how the persistent data container is stored in item meta, like I showed you guys earlier. Go ahead and zoom in. There we go. It's a little better. Okay. And then finally, we just need our namespace key. So our namespace key, I already created it in our command class. I'm just go ahead and copy it real quick. If you haven't seen my last video, which you probably should before coding this one, the namespace key is very important. Make sure you're using the same key when you're setting it and when you're getting it. And then finally, if the container.has our key and the persistent data type is our type that we created, our new information data type, well, that just means that they have an ID. They're clicking on an ID. So we can say information info equals our container dot get our key, and again, our new information data type. Once we have our information there, you guys can do whatever you want with it. I'm just going to say player.send message plus info.getUID. Really, you guys, whatever you guys want to do here. It's such a simple plugin. Date issued. Oh, right here though. If you guys don't know how to do dates, really simple. We're going to use the simple date format. I'm going to call it SD. I'm going to set equal to a new simple date format. And then we pass in the format. If you guys don't know what the format codes are, go ahead and just copy this right here and go search it, and you can see all the different format codes. But we're going to say day, month, year. We're doing the American date format. Or I mean, the European date format. Whoops. So we're doing the European date format, day, month, year. And then in the date issue, we're going to say plus SD dot format, and our date is saved in our info.get issue date. Finally, type in return here, and at the end, the last thing I want to say is player.send message chat color dot red. This is a fake ID. So if it has the information in there that is a real ID, what's returned, make sure you return, because at the end we're saying this is a fake ID. I hope everything we just did and went over it makes a lot of sense to you guys. I know I went ahead and gave you guys this whole class because just saving time for the video, but when you're setting the ID, just like when we're getting it and checking if it has it, the persistent data type right here is this new information data type. This allows us to pass in information, just as if we put in a string here, it allows us to pass in a string. Last but not least, make sure you go into the main class and make sure you register that command, as well as registering that listener. And then just like that, our plugin is all done. I'm gonna go ahead and run it on the server and see how it looks. All right, now on the server, when I type in /getID, you see that we got our issued ID right here, CodedRed's ID. Remember to click on it and get that information that I put in there. It's a very, very simple plugin. But if we go to our fake ID right here, click on it, this is a fake ID. I hope this all makes sense to you guys of how to create your custom persistent data type. This opens persistent data container to even more opportunities and more stuff you can do with it. Obviously, this is a very simple example of something we can do with persistent data type. If y'all do need more help on this, please join my help Discord. We will help you guys through this. It is very simple, but like I said, it can be troubling when the classes aren't serializable. Hope you guys did enjoy the video. I'll see you guys in the next one.